So the first thing we're going to consider for the Vikings theme is the Dorian mode. So first I'll do a review of that in case you need a refresher, and then we'll talk about why it's a good choice. So you can think of a mode as kind of like a flavor of a scale. So the major and minor scales are actually modes. And you actually say if you change mode, if you're in C major and change mode, you could go to C minor. A lot of people don't necessarily think of major and minor as modes, but they are. And so the other modes, the church modes, as we call them in music theory, are just more refined flavors of major and minor. So our typical major scale, as you may remember, looks like this. We can also call that Ionian. To get the Dorian mode, there's two ways to approach it. The first is to use the exact same notes as that major scale, but start on the second scale degree. So instead of starting on the C, we'll start on the D. That is one way to get D Dorian. The other way, the way I actually prefer to think about it, just because it lends more to kind of what makes Dorian Dorian, is to think about the scale degrees. So again, in our major scale, let's do D as our major scale this time. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, right? That's our major scale. To get Dorian, the formula is 1, 2, flat 3, which means we've lowered that F sharp to F natural, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. So notice the differences, as we can see with these sharps, are in the third, which is a minor third in the Dorian mode, and that seventh, which is a minor seventh. Now what's interesting about Dorian is the one thing that didn't change, which is this B, the sixth. Instead of being a flat 6 like you'd expect in D minor, it's a natural 6. So what we get from that is a brighter version of minor. It's like a different, more nuanced flavor of minor. And if we listen to that, there is a certain Celtic flavor to the Dorian mode. I think it's just very common in like Irish music. And you also get this nice mix. It's like a slightly more major version of the minor key. And part of that is because we get this G major chord against a D minor, as opposed to normally you'd expect the G minor chord. Here's what we'd normally expect. And instead we're getting... So it's a little bit brighter, especially if we play them right next to each other. It's not quite so sad and menacing. So it makes sense for our Vikings on those kind of two different fronts, as far as the cultural suggestion of the Celtic music and just being in this kind of Northern European space. But it also makes sense that these guys are tough. They're serious. So we want to be minor because these are serious guys, but they're not sad. They're proud, you know? And so it's a really nice choice of nuance, getting that kind of serious but proud. So that is one thing we're going to do, is work within the Dorian mode. The next thing I think we should think about is using the minor pentatonic scale. So again, quick review: penta meaning 5, tonic meaning tones or notes. We have, those are the 5 tones, back to the root. That's the minor pentatonic scale. Let me put it in eighth notes so it's a little easier to see all in one place. Pentatonic scale is the basis of a lot of music all over the world. Asian music, European music, it's pretty prevalent throughout music history. Something that's really nice for our purposes is there's a slightly, I don't want to say primitive quality, but I'll say kind of primitive quality, but especially a very open quality. We have very little stepwise motion, just in these guys here and just here, but quite a bit of open space and gaps. So we're missing a second degree and we're missing a sixth. So the pentatonic scale is actually going to be a nice choice for these kind of stoic, slightly heroic, but mostly just kind of bold and tough Vikings. However, we did talk about how we have that Dorian mode, and the key signature thing is that raised sixth, which is not in the pentatonic. So I think what we should do is consider the pentatonic as the basis, as the main thing that we're going to work with here, and then occasionally have some suggestions of that Dorian mode as applicable. And it may be that we're just using those in the supporting harmony. So maybe we'll use the major 4 chord underneath, but keep that pentatonic generally on top. I'm not going to restrict myself to only the notes in the pentatonic. I'll allow a 2 and a 6 if I need them, but that's going to be kind of the basis of the main melody that I'm going to work on. The other thing we should think about in the context of melody is the rhythm, and especially the time signature and just the general meter that we're feeling underneath. So back to that idea of vague cultural influences, a lot of Irish and Scottish music uses a tuplet feel meter, 3/4, 6/8, 9/8, that kind of thing. And something that's interesting in the How to Train Your Dragon scorebook they talk about is actually how Irish music has a 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, and Scottish is more 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or even 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, and Irish is a 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know, it's something we'll think about. I think we might lean towards the Scottish rhythm a little bit. That's what the film theme does as well. And so also we want this dun 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 dun. We get the cultural feel. It feels appropriate to the imaginary world that these Vikings are coming from. It also has just a nice energy. I mean, these are seafaring people, right? They have ships, and we have this kind of rocking of ships. So again, all of this is back to that idea of style and trying to make specific choices that are going to lend themselves towards a certain result. So using a Dorian mode, mostly structured around a minor pentatonic scale in a triplet feel, is going to give us a lot of the things we need without having yet actually even written a note. Just making those choices with those constraints and those restrictions is going to set us up to be in the right place. So let's write the basis of our melody here.